Richard Crawford stood by the window of the upscale restaurant, watching the evening light paint the city in shades of amber and gold. At 52, he had built an empire. But somewhere along the way, he had forgotten to build a life. His assistant had insisted on this blind date. "You need to meet someone, Mr. Crawford," she had said gently. "The office shouldn't be your whole world." Richard checked his watch. 5 minutes past 7. Perhaps she wouldn't come at all. Then he saw her. She wasn't what he expected. Where he had imagined designer clothes and polished confidence, he saw a young woman in a simple blue dress, clutching a little girl to her hip. The child, maybe 2 years old, wore a pink dress that had seen better days, but was clean and pressed with obvious care. The woman's eyes met his across the room, and Richard saw something there. Worry, yes, but also courage. Her name was Emma Walsh, 28 years old, with light brown hair pulled back in a practical bun and eyes that held more life experience than someone her age should carry. She approached slowly, the little girl hiding her face in her mother's shoulder. "Mr. Crawford?" Emma's voice was soft but steady. "I'm so sorry. I know this isn't what you were expecting. I can leave if you'd like?" Richard surprised himself. "Please," he said, pulling out a chair. "Stay." As they sat down, Emma kept the little girl close. "This is Sophie," she said quietly. "My daughter. The babysitter canceled at the last minute, and I couldn't afford to miss this. Your assistant said you were looking for someone genuine, someone real." Richard felt something shift in his chest. How long had it been since anyone had been this honest with him? "Tell me about yourself, Emma," he said gently. The story came slowly, between bites of bread that Sophie picked at with tiny fingers. Emma worked 2 jobs, cleaning offices at night, waiting tables during the day. Sophie's father had left before she was born. They lived in a small apartment on the edge of town, and every penny was counted twice. "I know I'm not sophisticated," Emma said, her cheeks coloring. "I don't know about wines or business deals, but I work hard, and I try to be kind. And Sophie is my whole world." As if understanding, little Sophie looked up at Richard with enormous brown eyes. Then, to everyone's surprise, she reached out her small hand and placed it on his. Richard felt tears prick his eyes. When was the last time someone had touched him with such simple trust? "You know what I see, Emma?" Richard said slowly. "I see someone who shows up, who keeps going even when it's hard, who loves completely." He paused, his voice growing softer. "That's not common. In fact, that's rare." They talked through dinner. Not about stocks or markets, but about real things. Emma told him about teaching Sophie her colors, about the garden she tended in pots on her tiny balcony, about her dreams of going back to school someday. Richard found himself sharing too, about the loneliness of success, about losing his parents years ago and never quite filling that empty space, about forgetting, somewhere along the way, what really mattered. As the evening drew to a close, Sophie had fallen asleep against her mother's chest, her tiny hand still reaching toward Richard. "This probably wasn't the evening you planned," Emma said apologetically, gathering her things. "No," Richard agreed. Then he smiled, really smiled, for the first time in years. It was better. He walked them to Emma's old car in the parking lot. As she buckled Sophie into a car seat that was clean but worn, Richard made a decision. "Emma, I'd like to see you again. You and Sophie both." He held up a hand when she started to protest. "Not because I pity you. Because you reminded me tonight of something I'd forgotten." "What's that?" Emma asked. "That the best things in life aren't expensive. They're real." Over the following months, Richard learned what it meant to truly live. He attended Sophie's play dates in the park. He helped Emma with her online courses when she finally enrolled in community college. He discovered that a Sunday morning making pancakes with a toddler who insisted on helping could bring more joy than any business deal. Emma taught him patience. Sophie taught him play. Together, they taught him love. On a quiet evening a year later, in that same restaurant where they'd first met, Richard looked at Emma across the table. Sophie was with a babysitter, one they could now easily afford. But Richard had learned that money wasn't the point. "I came to that blind date expecting to meet someone impressive," Richard said, taking Emma's hand. Instead, I met someone important. You stole something from me that night, Emma. She looked worried for a moment. He smiled. You stole my loneliness. My isolation. My belief that success and happiness were the same thing. He reached into his pocket. Now I'd like to give you something in return. The ring was simple, elegant, perfect. Marry me, Emma. Let me spend the rest of my life learning from you and Sophie what truly matters. Through happy tears, Emma said yes. Sometimes the best things in life come when we're not looking. Sometimes they arrive in a worn blue dress carrying a sleepy toddler, teaching us that love doesn't need luxury. It just needs truth, courage, and an open heart. And sometimes, a lonely man discovers that what he needed all along wasn't a perfect match on paper. It was a kind heart, a genuine soul, and a reminder that life's greatest riches have nothing to do with money at all.